Welcome to another edition of Small Biz Evolution. As e-commerce continues to grow, small businesses are faced with tough realities of operating across borders, from shifting regulations and tax changes to rising costs and protecting intellectual property. These challenges can often feel overwhelming for South African SMEs trying to stay competitive online. Joining me to unpack the complexities of global trade for small businesses is Chief Economist of the Agricultural Business Chamber of South Africa, Wandile Sihlobo. Wandile, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
What challenges do small online businesses face with regulations and cross-border compliance?
I mean, at the current moment, we were all operating, I would say, before the start of the year, in a particular system which was embracing, to an extent, globalization and making sure that there's a easiness on the regulation, both on the movement of products, but also just on a services side, on the financial regulations and the other aspects. But I think since the start of the new administration in the US, we are seeing a much more fragmentation of all of that environment that we were used to, whereby many countries are looking inwards. And that has brought, of course, then the disruption. And I would argue that over time, we will start seeing also just the increasing costs of doing business, both on a cross-border, but just generally on thinking about even beyond the services, on moving the goods because of the changing and evolving regulatory environment that we are in. We often focus on big firms, but I think the small businesses are facing as much complexities.
Wandile, understanding and complying with international regulations is essential for SMEs. What resources are available to assist South African e-commerce businesses in ensuring regulatory compliance across borders?
I think the DTIC is one of those institutions that tries to have some of its directorates that are focused on doing some of this work. And I think the other aspect that we may think about is to say, how does the DTIC showcase some of those support that they have for small businesses to South Africans, so that they are able to see what opportunities they can take advantage of. But I think the other reality that we face with is that a number of South African SMEs, they doing a lot of activities for the domestic consumer. But over time, of course, we will think about how do people expand to the continent and elsewhere, as the services that they offer, depending on what sector one is, becomes much more demanded in other areas, which is where then I think the DTIC side is the one that will have to guide these businesses on that part.
Wandile, the closure of the de minimis tax loophole has leveled the playing field for local retailers. How are e-commerce SMEs adjusting to this?
This is one of the evolving environment that we will also be looking at on this. And I would say for me, for the SMME side in South Africa, there's of course the issues of tax, the issues of financing, but I would say in our country, we still need to nurture the size and the growth of a number of these SMMEs before then we begin to see them playing an important and a significant role on that, which is why I was bringing back even the conversation of saying the DTIC, the small business department, whatever assistance that they can offer, so that we start seeing a number of businesses developing. And as they develop, then depending on their services, they begin to take advantage of some of the opportunities that may be there. But that's the path I think we must be in now, especially at the moment where there's high unemployment, and in a number of regions, if you look just beyond the broader macroeconomic growth, but you look at the regional performance in South Africa, you'll see that a number of regions are not seeing some solid economic activity, which is why juicing up then the small businesses will be part and parcel of that. But again, it depends on the service and the industry that one is in, because there are also some fundamental difficulties that I think, again, the state will need to address in order to ease up the environment of doing business, and then we can see more and more of these medium and the small scale businesses operating reasonably well.
Intellectual property is also a huge one. How can SMEs navigate intellectual property rights when selling products internationally?
These are some of the things that I think our regulators will have to be assisting our businesses in. And unfortunately, much of this, again, lies within our friends at the DTIC. And I think it's about South Africa's already, we are complying with some of the major international regulations that are out there, but it's about then how do we protect the domestic firms so that we don't encounter what the US firms argue they've accounted in China and in some of the other areas that they tend to operate in. And if then there isn't a clear communication of what facilities are available to assisting the domestic firms, this is where they will find themselves at a later stage being exposed to some of these risks, which is where then that interaction between the state, the regulators, as well as the businesses may be important. And this is one of those things where one would hope that many medium and small businesses can be affiliated with the Small Business Institute and many others who are the right organizations that are actually able to assist folks to comply with all of the regulations and even on issues of the IP and make sure that they are protected in those activities.
Well, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for those insights.
Thank you.
Well, that was Wandile Sihlobo, Chief Economist of the Agricultural Business Chamber of South Africa. Until next time, goodbye.